The stars above Vera Prime shimmered like scattered diamonds across black velvet, and Princess Lysera stood on the balcony of her palace, staring into the infinite void. From this height, the city below seemed peaceful, quiet, almost innocent. But Lysera knew better. Politics was never innocent. Diplomacy was never simple. And the choice she was about to make could determine the fate of her entire race. For centuries, the Cerithians had ruled their star system with pride. Their technology was unmatched. Their cities glittered with energy fields, and their armies were precise and disciplined. Yet, even with all their power, their system was not untouched by threats. Other races, envious and ambitious, had eyes on Vera Prime. And tensions had grown so high that war was becoming more than a possibility, it was inevitable. Lysera's father, King Varys, had called her to his chamber that morning with a message that would change everything. She remembered the weight in his voice as he said, "Lysera, the council has agreed. You must marry a human." "A human?" she had repeated, astonished. Humans were primitive in comparison, barely spacefaring compared to the Cerithians. They were a minor power on the galactic stage, struggling to maintain their colonies and alliances. Marrying one for political gain felt almost humiliating. "Yes," her father had continued, his eyes solemn. "Captain Elias Kane of Earth. Our intelligence says he is exceptional. Not for his technology, he has little of it, but for other reasons. He is a man who can inspire, who can think in ways we cannot. We need this alliance. We need peace. And you are the bridge." Lysera had stared at him in silence. She was not yet 24 cycles old, but she had learned the weight of duty already. Cerithian society placed family and planet above self. But still, marrying a human? A species she had only seen in hollow archives? A creature she barely understood? Now, as she watched the stars, she wondered what kind of man could inspire peace. Not through fear or force, but through something deeper, something that even her advanced mind could not measure. The doors behind her slid open silently. Her attendant, Mireia, stepped in, bowing low. "Princess, preparations are complete. The ceremonial ship will depart for the meeting in 3 cycles." Lysera turned to her. "3 cycles, yes. I am not sure what to expect." Mireia smiled softly. "He is a human, Princess. Humans are surprising. You may find that what you expect is very different from what you see." Lysera allowed herself a small, wry smile. "We shall see." The journey to the neutral space station was long. The ceremonial ship was a marvel of Cerithian engineering. Sleek, shimmering, with energy shields, and capable of jumping light years and hours. Lysera had traveled extensively, yet this voyage felt heavier than any she had taken. Not because of distance, but because of the uncertainty that awaited. She spent much of the journey in meditation, something her race valued highly. Meditation cleared the mind, focused thoughts, and revealed hidden truths. But today, her mind was restless. She tried to envision Elias Kane, the human she would meet, the man she was to marry. What did he look like? What did he think? Did he understand the gravity of this arrangement? When she finally arrived at the station, the meeting hall was filled with representatives from multiple races. She stepped forward, regal in her posture, and waited. The doors opened, and he walked in. Captain Elias Kane. He was not what she expected. He did not radiate authority or technological brilliance. He was simple in appearance, dressed in a modest uniform that spoke of practicality rather than elegance. Yet, there was something about him, an aura of calm, of quiet strength. His eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the room with an intensity that made Lysera take notice. "Princess Lysera," he said, his voice steady but warm. "It is an honor to meet you." Lysera inclined her head slightly, careful to maintain composure. "Captain Kane, the honor is mutual." He smiled faintly, a small gesture that seemed genuine. She noticed how he did not rush to impress, did not flaunt what he lacked. There was confidence in simplicity, a groundedness she had not seen in many of her own kind. The initial discussions were formal, cautious. Diplomats spoke, alliances were considered, and the weight of the universe seemed to press down on the small meeting hall. Lysera found herself distracted, however, by the human beside her. Elias asked questions not about technology or treaties, but about the people, the culture, the hopes and fears of those he sought to ally with. Lysera was intrigued. Most leaders she had encountered valued strategy, power, or cunning, but Elias seemed to value understanding. It was human. When the talks concluded, Lysera was escorted to her private quarters. She gazed out at the stars once more, reflecting. She had been trained to see humans as simple, limited, yet Elias had shown her something else. Awareness, intelligence, and a subtle depth that made her question her assumptions. That night, she could not sleep. Thoughts of Elias, of the alliance, of the unknown future, swirled in her mind. She realized that the marriage, intended as a political gesture, might be far more than that. Perhaps, in him, she would find a partner not just in politics, but in spirit. The following days were filled with preparation. Traditions had to be observed, ceremonies rehearsed, and allies reassured. Yet, Lysera's attention always drifted to Elias. He moved among the station's corridors with ease, speaking with engineers, medics, and crew as though they were equals. He did not command respect through fear, nor did he seek praise. It was earned naturally, through empathy, insight, and quiet competence. One afternoon, Lysera watched him from the observation deck. He had discovered a minor technical issue in the station's energy field and was calmly instructing a team to fix it. His hands moved with precision, his mind clearly calculating multiple variables at once. He did not panic. He did not shout. He simply solved the problem. Lysera found herself admiring him more than she cared to admit. This human, whom she had thought weak, was capable, brilliant, and astonishing. "You watch him often," Mireia remarked, startling her. Lysera turned, slightly embarrassed. I suppose I do. He is remarkable in ways I did not expect." Mireia nodded. "Humans often are. They surprise us, Princess. Perhaps you will learn this soon enough." The marriage ceremony itself was both beautiful and solemn. Symbols of Cirithian culture blended with human traditions, creating a unique display of unity. When Elias took her hand, Lysera felt an unexpected warmth. It was not a fire of passion, but a quiet assurance. He was steady, grounded, present. "Princess Lysera," he said softly, "I promise to honor this union not just for peace, but for the good of all who depend on it." Lysera nodded, her own voice firm. "And I promise the same, Captain Kane. Together, we will protect our people and work for a future where peace is not fragile, but strong." As the ceremony concluded, she realized something profound. She had entered this marriage, expecting a figurehead, a pawn. Instead, she had found a partner, someone who could match her mind, and perhaps surpass it, in unexpected ways. The first days as husband and wife were filled with adjustment. Life in close quarters revealed small habits, preferences, and quirks. Elias was patient, observant, and often amused by Cirithian customs. Lysera found herself laughing more than she had in cycles. During a meal, she asked him, Do you find our ways strange? He smiled. Sometimes. But I also see wisdom in them. I think every culture has something to teach. I just try to learn it without breaking it. Lysera was struck by his humility. He did not boast of human achievements. He did not claim superiority. Yet his competence was evident in every word, every action. As the days passed, Lysera began to see hints of a deeper strength. Elias spoke of human history, of conflicts survived, of alliances forged against impossible odds. He described human resilience not as a tactic, but as a philosophy. We endure, he said. We adapt. We care for each other. And sometimes, that is more powerful than any weapon. Lysera reflected on these words long into the night. Perhaps this was the secret the Cerithians had overlooked. Humanity's true strength was not in technology or fleet size, but in courage, ingenuity, and the will to protect what mattered most. By the end of the first cycle together, Lysera's view of the human race and of Elias Kane had changed completely. What she had expected to be a political duty had become a lesson in humility, admiration, and cautious wonder. She had married a human to secure peace, but she had found something far more significant. A partner capable of greatness, a mind unbound by convention, and a spirit unshakable in its resolve. And as she looked once more at the stars from the palace balcony, she felt a spark of hope. Perhaps the galaxy had underestimated humans. Perhaps the galaxy had yet to see the full measure of what one man and his kind could achieve. Lysera did not yet know the trials that awaited them, nor the battles that would test their alliance and their trust. But she knew one thing with certainty. Captain Elias Kane was no ordinary human, and she would watch with awe and respect as his true power revealed itself, one quiet, deliberate step at a time. The days after the marriage passed in a blur of ceremonies, meetings, and official duties. The alliance between humans and Cerithians, though freshly formed, began to show signs of promise. Princess Lysera, however, found her attention often drifting from treaties and protocols to one man, Captain Elias Kane. He was unlike anyone she had ever known. He moved with ease among the crew, speaking to engineers and medics with equal respect. He asked questions not just to gather information, but to understand. Lysera noticed how the humans under his command seemed inspired by him, responding with energy and initiative that she had rarely seen in her people. It was during a routine inspection of the station's power grid that Lysera first witnessed the subtle wonder of his mind in action. The station had been humming along smoothly until a minor surge caused a cascading warning across the consoles. Panic might have gripped lesser leaders, but Elias approached calmly, kneeling at the console and examining the data streams. "Here," he said, pointing to a sequence of feedback loops. "The system is compensating for the surge, but it won't hold for long. We need to reroute the power temporarily and stabilize the core. It will require precise timing, but it's doable." Lysera watched as he moved with an almost effortless precision. He instructed a small team, giving clear and concise directions, while still allowing each member space to act on their own judgment. Within minutes, the problem was under control. The lights returned to their steady glow, and the hum of the station returned to normal. Lysera felt a mixture of awe and curiosity. She had been trained to respect intelligence, but Elias's skill was different. It was not mere knowledge or calculation, it was intuition, adaptability, and trust in his own judgment. Humans were often underestimated for their lack of advanced tech compared to Cerithians, but Elias had shown her that technology alone did not define power. "You make it look easy," she said later, when they walked through the observation corridor, the station glowing beneath them. He shrugged, modestly. "I just try to see the problem clearly. Panic rarely solves anything. We're contents. To weigh that's neither. Lysera considered this. There was a simplicity to his approach, but also a depth. Humans, she realized, had a way of thinking differently, less rigid, more creative. Where her people relied on precision and prediction, Elias relied on intuition and experience. Over the next few cycles, Elias continued to demonstrate his abilities in small, subtle ways that never drew unnecessary attention but left lasting impressions. During one training exercise, he observed the Cerithian pilots struggling with a simulation designed to test adaptability under pressure. Most commanders would have criticized mistakes or demanded perfection. Elias, however, walked among the trainees, asking questions. What were you thinking here? Why did you make this choice? He listened carefully, nodding at their answers and offering suggestions that encouraged them to think in new ways. By the end of the session, the pilots were performing better, not because he had forced them to obey, but because he had taught them to see solutions for themselves. Lysera, watching from the observation deck, felt a quiet admiration. Humans might be physically weaker than Cerithians, but they had a resilience and creativity that could not be engineered. It was during a meal in the station's dining hall that another side of Elias became clear. The room was filled with diplomats, engineers, and soldiers, all discussing routine matters. A disagreement arose between two alien delegates, voices rising in tension. Before Lysera could intervene, Elias stood, his posture calm but firm. We all want the same thing, a stable future. Let's focus on the solution, not the blame. He guided the discussion, asking questions that highlighted common ground and encouraging compromise. Within minutes, the argument dissolved into collaboration. Lysera noted how the humans around him relaxed in response to his presence, and even the aliens seemed to respect his clarity. Humans, she thought, had a way of seeing unity where others saw division. One evening, Lysera accompanied Elias on a walk along the observation deck, where the stars stretched endlessly around them. The view was breathtaking, a reminder of how small their station was in the vast galaxy. Do you ever feel insignificant? She asked quietly, watching the glittering stars. He considered her question. Sometimes, he admitted, but I also think that even small actions matter. Even the smallest choice can change the course of events. People underestimate that. Humans learn to act, even when the odds seem impossible. Lysera was struck by his words. Her people often relied on technology, on strategy, on careful prediction, to shape outcomes. But humans acted despite uncertainty, relying on courage and resourcefulness. There was a strength in that unpredictability, a strength that could turn weakness into advantage. She began to see Elias not just as a partner in diplomacy, but as a symbol of what humanity represented. Resilience, ingenuity, and a willingness to take responsibility. The next test of Elias's subtle brilliance came unexpectedly. The station received a distress signal from a nearby colony. A meteor storm had damaged their shields, and without immediate help, the settlement would be destroyed. Cerithian commanders debated strategies, each suggesting complex maneuvers that relied heavily on precise calculations and large fleets. Elias, however, proposed a simpler, more flexible plan. He organized a small team of humans and aliens to deliver portable shield generators directly to the colony. They would work in shifts, repairing the damage as it occurred, rather than relying on a single large fleet to act perfectly. The Cerithians were skeptical. It is risky, one commander said. A small team could be destroyed. Elias smiled faintly. Maybe. But a small team can also adapt. They can make decisions on the spot. And if we coordinate well, we increase the chance of success more than we would by relying solely on numbers and technology. Lysera watched as he calmly coordinated with the teams, calculating timing, routes, and contingencies with precision. When the mission succeeded flawlessly, the Cerithian leaders were silent, their respect for the human captain deepening. Elias did not celebrate. He simply returned to Lysera, brushing off praise as though it were unnecessary. "We did what was needed," he said. Lysera felt a surge of admiration. He did not seek glory, yet his actions left results that could not be ignored. Humans, she realized, had a quiet strength, the kind that did not demand recognition but achieved greatness nonetheless. In the following weeks, Lysera began to notice changes in herself. She had entered the marriage, expecting a duty, a political obligation. But Elias's presence was changing her perspective. She admired his intelligence, his courage, and his ability to inspire loyalty without fear or force. She found herself asking questions she had never asked before. Could humans truly compete with the galaxy's most advanced species? Could one human, with the right mind and heart, change the course of events? Elias, for his part, seemed unaware of the effect he had on her. He remained focused on his duties, moving among humans and aliens alike, helping where needed, teaching where possible, and solving problems with quiet efficiency. He never boasted, never demanded attention, yet his competence spoke volumes. One night, during a quiet moment in their shared quarters, Lysera asked him, "Why do you do it? Why do you work so hard for others, when you could focus only on yourself?" He looked at her, calm and steady. "Because someone has to. If I can make a difference, even in small ways, why wouldn't I? That's what humans do. We act. Even when we are uncertain. We try, and we learn, and we keep going." Lysera reflected on this. It was simple, yet profound. Humans were not always the strongest, not always the fastest, and certainly not the most technologically advanced. But they had a determination, a creativity, and a will to act that could surpass all obstacles. She had underestimated them, and Elias had proven that assumptions could be dangerous. By the end of the second part of their journey, the alliance between humans and Cerithians had strengthened. Lysera had grown to respect and admire Elias more than she had anticipated. He was not just a political tool or a symbol of unity. He was a problem solver, a teacher, a leader, and, most importantly, a human whose potential far exceeded what anyone had expected. She understood now that her marriage, which had begun as a duty for peace, had become a lesson in humility and admiration. She had married a human to prevent war, but she had found something far more valuable: insight into the true power of humanity. Lysera did not yet know the trials that awaited them, nor the dangers that would challenge their alliance and their trust. But she felt a spark of hope, stronger than ever. If humans were capable of such subtle wonders, what might they achieve when pushed to their limits? And as she watched Elias moving among the crew, solving problems, guiding discussions, and inspiring loyalty, she realized the answer would be nothing short of extraordinary. The calm of space had a strange way of hiding danger. For weeks, the joint fleet of humans and Cerithians had patrolled the outer systems, ensuring the peace treaty held. On Vera Prime, citizens began to breathe easier, believing the shadow of war had passed. But in the depths of the uncharted sectors, a threat was brewing. A faction of mercenary raiders had detected the new alliance and saw opportunity in chaos. Lysera stood on the observation deck of the flagship, gazing at the endless stars. Captain Elias Kane joined her, silent at first, his eyes scanning the vast expanse of black. "They've been quiet," Lysera said softly. "Too quiet." Elias nodded. "Calm is often the prelude to storm. I've been reviewing the sensor logs. Patterns suggest they're gathering ships and resources. They won't wait long." Lysera felt a chill despite the temperature-controlled deck. She had seen simulations of war before, but none prepared her for the real thing. Yet, beside Elias, there was a strange sense of reassurance. He did not panic, did not hesitate. He simply observed, analyzed, and prepared. The first sign of trouble came at dawn. A fleet of unknown ships appeared on the station's long-range scanners, moving with speed and precision. Their markings were unfamiliar, yet their intent was clear. Intrusion, possibly attack. Elias immediately convened a meeting with the commanders. The room buzzed with tension as alien leaders debated strategies, each more cautious than the last. "We can't risk our fleet against an unknown enemy," one Cerithian general argued. "We should retreat to Vera Prime and await reinforcements." Elias listened, nodding thoughtfully. Then he spoke, calm and deliberate. "Retreat will not protect the colonies or the civilians. If we delay, they will gain the advantage. We must act now, but we do not need to match them ship for ship. We need strategy, timing, and adaptability." The room fell silent. Humans were few in number, their technology less advanced than the Cerithians. To some, it seemed reckless to trust a human's judgment in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet there was confidence in Elias's eyes, a quiet certainty that made even the most skeptical pause. Lysera realized then that Elias did not rely on brute force. He relied on understanding, observation, and ingenuity, the traits that made humans underestimated but powerful. When the enemy fleet entered the outer perimeter, the real test began. Sensors detected multiple attack vectors, but Elias remained composed. He coordinated the fleet, assigning ships to defensive positions while creating mobile strike groups capable of rapid movement. His instructions were precise, yet flexible, allowing captains to adapt based on real-time conditions. Lysera watched as the first shots were fired. The enemy vessels moved with aggression, but the human-led tactics disrupted their formation. Cerithian pilots, guided by Elias's strategy, maneuvered with a precision that surprised even themselves. Then came the moment that would be remembered for cycles to come. A group of enemy raiders broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the station. The automated turrets struggled to track them due to their unusual speed and trajectory. Without hesitation, Elias activated a small squadron of fighters, mostly humans, supported by Cerithian craft, and led them personally into the breach. Lysera's heart pounded as she watched him through the observation window. He moved with a combination of intuition, calculation, and sheer courage. Each maneuver was precise, each command timed perfectly. The raiders were formidable, yet Elias anticipated their actions. He predicted their evasive patterns, directed his squadron to cut off their routes, and neutralized threats with minimal risk to his team. The humans fought not with reckless aggression, but with coordination, creativity, and the kind of instinct that machines could not replicate. As the battle raged, Lysera noticed something extraordinary. While the Cerithians relied on superior firepower and shields, Elias exploited every small advantage terrain in space, sensor blind spots, and even the enemy's assumptions about human capabilities. He turned weaknesses into strength, improvising solutions faster than the enemy could react. At one point, a raider ship breached the station's defensive perimeter and headed straight for the main energy core. Panic would have gripped anyone else, but Elias calmly directed a small interceptor squadron. They engaged the enemy, guiding them away with clever maneuvers rather than brute force. Then, using a portable energy net he designed on the spot, they disabled the raiders' engines, saving the core. Lysera could hardly believe what she was seeing. This human, whom she had married for peace, was operating with the skill of a commander whose mind seemed to calculate possibilities like a living machine. Yet it was more than strategy, it was adaptability, courage, and creativity combined. The enemy, realizing their coordinated attack was failing, attempted a retreat. Elias, however, did not allow them to regroup. He ordered a controlled pursuit, cutting off escape routes and disabling ships without unnecessary destruction. By the time the skirmish ended, the enemy fleet was scattered, and their plans thwarted. After the battle, the station's command room was filled with mixed emotions: relief, admiration, and disbelief. Cerithian commanders approached Elias with cautious respect. "Your tactics, they are unlike anything we have seen," one said. "Your methods are effective beyond expectation." Elias waved off the praise. "We did what was necessary to protect the station and the colonies. Strategy is only useful if it saves lives, not for pride or recognition." Lysera stepped forward, her eyes shining with admiration. "Captain Kane, that was incredible. I have never seen anyone fight with such clarity, such precision." Elias shook his head. "I don't fight alone. The team did as well. Humans, Cerithians together, we adapt and respond. That's what matters." Lysera felt a swell of pride. She had married this human, expecting a figurehead, a political symbol. Instead, she had found a strategist, a warrior, and a leader, someone whose skill could protect billions, not through fear, but through intellect and courage. The aftermath of the battle brought unexpected attention. Reports of Elias's actions spread across the Alliance, inspiring confidence and admiration. Humans, previously underestimated, were now being seen as valuable allies. Lysera observed the shift carefully. The respect given to Elias was not just for his command in battle, but for his ability to think creatively and act decisively under pressure. Yet, with respect came new responsibilities. Elias and Lysera were soon called to mediate between human and Cerithian units on logistics and strategy. The enemy's appearance had been a warning others were watching, and the Alliance had to prove it could respond to threats efficiently. Elias approached the challenge as he had before: calm, observant, and adaptable. He listened to concerns, integrated ideas from both humans and Cerithians, and created plans that accounted for unexpected scenarios. His leadership style was unique. It did not rely on hierarchy alone, but on trust, intelligence, and collaboration. Lysera, witnessing his methods, began to understand why humans had survived against odds that many more powerful species had failed to overcome. Their strength was not in raw power, but in creativity, resilience, and the ability to inspire others to rise above limitations. Days later, Lysera accompanied Elias on a routine patrol near the sector where the raiders had appeared. The area was quiet, almost serene, yet she could feel the tension. Elias scanned the surroundings, analyzing sensor data, predicting possible threats. "Do you ever tire?" she asked softly. "From thinking, planning, leading?" He smiled faintly. "Sometimes. But humans endure. We adapt. And we care. Those three things help us keep going when it feels impossible." "We adapted way." Lysera nodded, realizing that this was why he had succeeded in battle. Not just skill, not just intelligence, but endurance, adaptability, and the willingness to act even when uncertain. As they returned to the station, the reality of the Alliance settled around her. Humans were no longer just symbolic partners. They were essential, capable of extraordinary things, when trusted and given responsibility. And Elias, the human she had married to ensure peace, had proven beyond doubt that he was more than she had ever imagined. She also began to feel something personal growing within her: admiration, respect, and something quieter, yet deeper: an understanding that humans, and this one human in particular, were capable of inspiring loyalty and courage in ways she had never seen before. The first clash had passed, but it had left a mark. Not just on the fleet or the Alliance, but on Lysera herself. She now knew the truth. Humans were underestimated at their peril. One man, with determination, intelligence, and courage, could shift the balance of power. And Elias Kane was already doing exactly that. As the stars glimmered beyond the observation deck, Lysra felt a spark of anticipation. The galaxy had seen only a glimpse of what humans could do. She had married one for peace, but she suspected the true battles and the true demonstrations of human strength were still to come, and she would watch, with awe and respect, as Elias Kane revealed the full measure of what humans were capable of, one brilliant, decisive step at a time. The galaxy, vast and glittering with stars, was quiet that morning. Too quiet. On the bridge of the flagship, Princess Lysra and Captain Elias Kane stood side by side, scanning the expanse for signs of trouble. The previous skirmish with the raiders had ended successfully, but Elias knew peace in the outer sectors was fragile. "The patterns are changing," Elias said, tracing data streams on the holographic map. "Other factions are moving. They've noticed our fleet's tactics. They're learning." Lysra frowned. "So, more attacks are coming?" He nodded. "Probably. But that doesn't mean we wait for them. It means we adapt before they make the first move." Lysra had come to trust his instincts. Humans might lack the advanced technology of the Cerithians, but their minds had a way of seeing solutions where others saw only obstacles. She had witnessed it in minor crises, in skirmishes, and in strategy sessions. And she knew now that Elias's advantage was subtle, powerful, and dangerous to any enemy who underestimated him. The first challenge of the day arrived as a message from a nearby system. The colony of Thyra IX reported an organized attack by mercenary forces, larger and more coordinated than the previous raiders. The fleet prepared to respond, yet the alien commanders debated endlessly over traditional strategies, arguing about formation, strength, and shield distribution. Elias stood silently for a moment, then spoke. "They expect us to respond as the Cerithians always do. Predictable, by the book, overwhelming in force. If we do that, we give them the advantage. We need an approach they cannot anticipate." Lysra watched him lay out a plan. Instead of sending the main fleet in straight lines, he proposed splitting smaller teams into multiple routes, using distraction tactics to lure the enemy into overextending. Meanwhile, rapid human crews would repair damage and assist colonies with mobile units. The strategy relied on coordination, adaptability, and creativity skills humans excelled at, but which alien commanders rarely considered valuable. The plan surprised everyone. Some generals murmured in disbelief. "It is risky," one said. "Too many variables." Elias smiled faintly. "Risk is part of any battle. But calculated risk, when guided by intelligence and coordination, can turn the tide without unnecessary loss." Lysra felt a surge of admiration. This human thought differently. He did not rely solely on raw power, but on cleverness, flexibility, and the ability to inspire action in others. As the fleet moved into position, the enemy's first strike arrived. The mercenaries attacked in formations designed to overwhelm, relying on brute force and intimidation. Yet Elias's strategy worked. Small squads diverted the enemy's attention, leading them into traps and cutting off reinforcements. Human-led teams repaired critical systems mid-battle, keeping the fleet agile and responsive. Lysra observed from the bridge as Elias coordinated the movements. His commands were calm, precise, and adaptable. When a squadron deviated from the plan to avoid damage, Elias adjusted instantly, redirecting other units to maintain balance. Every decision he made created ripple effects, turning the enemy's aggression into confusion. It was unlike anything Lysra had witnessed in Cerithian battles. Where her people relied on overwhelming force, Elias relied on observation, anticipation, and trust in his team. Humans, she realized, had a natural advantage in thinking outside predictable patterns, a flexibility the galaxy had long underestimated. The turning point came when a massive mercenary ship broke through the outer defenses, targeting the central colony. Its weapons were powerful, its shields advanced, and it moved with terrifying precision. Panic could have spread, but Elias remained calm. He devised a plan on the spot. Using smaller, fast-moving human craft, he created decoys to lure the ship into an ambush. At the same time, he coordinated with Cerithian ships to surround it, not with brute strength, but with calculated positioning. Lysera watched, amazed, as the human-led squads executed the plan flawlessly. The enemy ship was disoriented, unable to anticipate moves that relied not on raw power, but on human ingenuity. Finally, using a device Elias had designed earlier, a portable energy tether, they immobilized the ship without destroying it. The entire bridge erupted in quiet awe. This human had turned a potential disaster into victory, without unnecessary destruction and with minimal risk to their own forces. Lysera's admiration for Elias grew with every passing moment. He was not just skilled, he was revolutionary. Humans, she realized, had a unique ability to innovate under pressure, to see solutions others could not, and to turn limitations into advantages. After the battle, Elias moved among the crews, praising their efforts, teaching them small lessons, and ensuring that even minor victories were understood and remembered. He did not seek glory or recognition. He simply ensured the teams were confident, competent, and ready for the next challenge. Lysera, watching him interact with humans and Cerithians alike, noted something profound. Humans had a natural way of inspiring others. They did not demand obedience through fear or authority. They earned respect through action, empathy, and intelligence. In Elias, this quality was magnified: a single human, capable of moving fleets, influencing minds, and shaping events across the galaxy. Even Cerithian commanders, who had once doubted him, now approached Elias with questions and curiosity rather than skepticism. He welcomed collaboration, yet always remained in control of the bigger picture, integrating ideas from all parties into a strategy that maximized every strength. Lysera realized that this was the true human advantage. Not their technology, not their physical power, but their adaptability, creativity, and ability to inspire others to achieve more than they thought possible. The days following the battle were filled with reconstruction, planning, and debriefing. Lysera and Elias worked side by side, often late into the artificial night, analyzing sensor data, predicting enemy movements, and preparing contingencies. Each session revealed more about human ingenuity. "Do you ever stop thinking?" Lysera asked one evening, tired but curious. Elias chuckled softly. "Thinking never stops. But humans are good at adapting, at finding solutions even in chaos. That's why we survive." Lysera thought about his words. The galaxy often judged humans for their simplicity, their limited technology, and their vulnerability. Yet she had seen how that very simplicity forced them to rely on creativity, quick thinking, and courage. In ways the galaxy did not understand, humans were dangerous because they were unpredictable and resilient. She began to see a deeper truth. This human she had married for peace was not just clever or brave. He was a force in the universe, one whose potential far exceeded what anyone had imagined. And the more she observed him, the more she realized the galaxy's underestimation of humanity was its greatest mistake. Lysera's reflection was interrupted by an urgent alert. Another faction of raiders had appeared, this time using faster, more agile ships. They were probing the outer defenses, testing the fleet's readiness. Elias moved immediately, analyzing the fleet, predicting enemy movements, and deploying squads in innovative formations. The battle was intense. Ships darted across space, exchanging fire, evading obstacles, and responding to dynamic threats. Yet, Elias remained composed. He used the enemy's assumptions against them, exploiting patterns they thought the humans would follow. Each maneuver, each command, displayed not only strategy, but also an intuitive understanding of behavior, of psychology, and of adaptation. Lysera felt a mix of awe and disbelief. Where others relied on overwhelming force, Elias relied on understanding, creativity, and adaptability, the hallmarks of human ingenuity. He was not just fighting a battle, he was teaching the galaxy a lesson. Never underestimate humans. The battle ended with another victory. The fleet had suffered minimal losses, while the enemy was scattered and demoralized. Cirithian commanders were openly praising Elias, some even asking him to train their officers in human tactics. Lysera, standing beside him on the bridge, felt a deep sense of pride. "You are extraordinary," she said quietly. Elias shook his head, smiling. "I only do what is necessary. Humans adapt. We survive. We inspire. That's our advantage." Lysera understood, finally, what made humans remarkable. It was not physical strength or technology. It was the mind, the spirit, and the willingness to act creatively, decisively, and courageously when circumstances demanded it. Humans could do the impossible not by trying to match others in power, but by thinking differently and never giving up. As they watched the stars beyond the observation deck, Lysera felt a spark of excitement. The galaxy had seen only a fraction of what humans could achieve. And with Elias Kane at her side, she knew they were only beginning to reveal the true potential of humanity. The first large-scale conflict had been won, but she understood that this was just the start. The galaxy was full of challenges, full of threats, full of dangers that would test them. And she knew that with Elias, humans and the Alliance could face anything. Lysera had married a human for peace. She had expected diplomacy, negotiation, and compromise. Instead, she had found a leader, a strategist, and a mind that could change the course of events across the stars. And she realized, with awe and anticipation, that the greatest battles and the greatest demonstrations of human strength were still to come. The galaxy had changed. Once, humans were underestimated, considered a minor species with little influence beyond their own star system. Now, after battles, crises, and countless demonstrations of skill, courage, and ingenuity, that perception was shifting. And at the center of it all stood one human, Captain Elias Kane. Princess Lysera walked through the corridors of the flagship, observing the preparations for a final summit between allied species. Representatives from dozens of systems had gathered to acknowledge the peace secured by the combined efforts of humans and Cirithians. Yet, as she passed, she saw Elias, as always, focused on the details. He was checking supplies, coordinating repair crews, and speaking quietly with the engineers. Lysera realized that he did not command attention through words or authority alone. He earned it by action, by competence, and by inspiring trust and confidence in everyone around him. She approached him quietly. "Captain Kane," she said softly, "sometimes I wonder if anyone realizes how much you've done." Elias looked up, smiling faintly. "I don't do it for recognition. I do it because it needs to be done. The galaxy doesn't wait for permission. It moves, and we move with it." Lysera shook her head, smiling. "And yet, you inspire others to move with you. That is extraordinary." The summit began in a massive chamber, the walls adorned with symbols of countless civilizations. Leaders gathered, exchanging greetings and formalities, but their attention kept returning to Elias Kane. Human or not, his reputation had grown beyond expectations. The stories of his actions during the raids, his strategy at Thyra 9, and his calm leadership had traveled faster than any fleet. When it was time to speak, Elias rose, but he did not take the stage with fanfare. He addressed the council directly, calmly, clearly. "We have faced threats together," he said, "and we have survived. Not because of power alone, but because of cooperation, creativity, and determination. Humans are not the strongest or the most advanced species, but we are adaptable, we are resilient, and we act when it matters. If we continue to trust each other and work together, we can maintain peace, even against the greatest threats. There was a pause. And then quiet murmurs of approval spread across the chamber. Aliens, humans, and hybrids alike felt the sincerity in his voice. This was not a speech for glory. It was a promise, a vision, and a call to action. Lysera watched him, her admiration deeper than ever. She had married a human for peace, but she realized she had gained a partner capable of shaping the galaxy, not by force, but by intelligence, courage, and moral clarity. The Council approved new agreements and protocols that reflected Elias's strategies. Rather than relying solely on large fleets or overwhelming firepower, allied species began to adopt flexible tactics, rapid response teams, and cross-cultural cooperation, inspired by human ingenuity. Lysera followed Elias through the post-summit operations, observing how he interacted with human and alien crews alike. His presence was steadying. Even the most nervous or uncertain officers responded with confidence when he guided them. The human advantage was clear. Humans inspired others to be better, think differently, and act decisively. Later, during a quiet walk through the observation deck, Lysera asked, "Do you ever think about how much has changed? How much humans have surprised them?" Elias looked out at the stars, thoughtful. "I don't worry about that. I only focus on what we can do next. Humans have always survived by adapting, learning, and acting. That's all we can do. Apply what we've learned, and keep moving forward." Lysera smiled. His humility, despite the enormity of his achievements, was part of what made him remarkable. The peace was not without challenges. Scattered attacks still tested the alliance, and some factions resisted cooperation. But Elias's methods proved consistently effective. He did not rely solely on brute strength or advanced technology. He relied on adaptability, intelligence, and the human ability to inspire action in others. During one critical mission, an unknown fleet attempted to blockade a neutral trade route. Other commanders suggested overwhelming force. But Elias proposed a more creative solution, using small, human-led squadrons to create multiple false targets, confusing the enemy, while repair crews ensured trade ships could navigate safely. The plan worked flawlessly. The enemy fleet, frustrated and disoriented, withdrew. Traders, diplomats, and civilians all praised the ingenuity of the human captain, whose calm, strategic mind had prevented disaster without unnecessary destruction. Lysera observed him afterward, speaking with both human and alien crews. "You do not need to fight like a god to win," he said. "But you do need to think, act, and inspire." Lysera realized he was right. Human strength was not only in battle, but in their minds, their courage, and their capacity to lead by example. As the weeks passed, Lysera and Elias continued to work together, both in diplomacy and in fleet operations. She noticed changes in herself as well. Her admiration for humans had grown into something deeper, a respect for their creativity, courage, and unyielding spirit. She had married Elias for duty, for peace. Yet she now found herself inspired, even challenged, by his presence. One evening, they stood on the observation deck, looking at a cluster of newly colonized planets. Lysera spoke softly. "I thought I understood humans. I thought I knew what they were capable of. But you've shown me otherwise." Elias glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. "Humans are full of surprises. That's why we endure, why we inspire, why we matter. You've seen it firsthand, Princess." She nodded, her gaze returning to the stars. "I have, and I am, grateful, not just for the peace, but for what you've taught me." about humans, about courage, about leadership. He reached for her hand, holding it gently. And I am grateful for your trust. Without it, none of this would have been possible. The simplicity of the gesture, the quiet acknowledgement of partnership spoke volumes. Lysera realized that this was more than duty, politics, or strategy. It was genuine connection, forged through shared purpose and mutual respect. The culmination of their efforts came with the establishment of the Galactic Alliance Council, a body designed to ensure lasting cooperation between humans, Cirithians, and other allied species. Lysera and Elias were honored as architects of this new order, though they both remained modest about their roles. During the inaugural council meeting, Elias again spoke, this time emphasizing collaboration and adaptability rather than dominance or authority. His words resonated deeply. We have learned that strength is not always measured in weapons, shields, or technology. True strength comes from understanding, creativity, courage, and the willingness to act when it matters most. Humans are not perfect, but we endure, adapt, and inspire. And together, with trust and cooperation, we can achieve more than any single species ever could. The council erupted in applause. Lysera watched as representatives of multiple species approached Elias afterward, not just to thank him, but to learn, to discuss, and to implement his methods. The human influence had grown beyond imagination, and the galaxy itself was beginning to respect the underestimated species. In private moments, Lysera reflected on the journey she had taken. She had married a human for peace, expecting a symbol, a figurehead. Instead, she had found a partner whose mind and heart could reshape entire systems. He had shown her the value of adaptability, creativity, and courage. He had proven that humans, though physically weaker or technologically simpler, could be unstoppable when thinking differently. She realized, with quiet awe, that she had also found something personal. Admiration had grown into respect, respect into affection, and affection into something more profound, a bond of trust, understanding, and shared purpose. As the council adjourned and the allied fleets prepared to return to their home systems, Lysera stood beside Elias on the observation deck once more. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of possibility. "You've done more than I ever imagined," she said softly. Elias shook his head. "We've done it together. Humans adapt, yes, but cooperation, trust, and leadership make the real difference. The galaxy has much to learn from all of us." Lysera smiled, taking his hand. "I've learned so much from you, from humans, and from this journey. I am proud to stand beside you." He squeezed her hand gently, a small but meaningful gesture. "And I am proud to have you beside me. Together, we can face anything, and I think the galaxy will see what humans are truly capable of." Lysera nodded, her eyes returning to the stars. She realized the truth of it. Humans were underestimated at their peril. One mind, one spirit, one determined human could inspire hope, change the course of events, and shape the galaxy. And Elias Kane, the human she had married for peace, had already begun to leave a legacy that would endure for cycles to come. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Human ingenuity, courage, and resilience were forces beyond measure. And beside him, Lysera understood that she had married not just for peace, but for greatness, for inspiration, and for a future she had never dared to imagine. The stars outside seemed brighter that night, reflecting the dawn of a new era. Humans were no longer underestimated, and together, Lysera and Elias would guide the galaxy toward a future full of hope, courage, and extraordinary possibility.